This is a clouds weather alert.
Good late Tuesday, early Wednesday, meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, tracking Tropical Storm Helene as it becomes better organized. It strengthens there. As we're looking, it's going to move and roll into that Gulf of Mexico here in pretty short order. And it'll even continue that strengthening trend, it looks like, and be a major hurricane hitting portions of northern Florida here as we look later on Thursday, maybe toward Thursday evening is the expectation at this point. So you need to be wrapping those preparations up. I know on Wednesday you'll be kind of dodging some action, but on Thursday, conditions will deteriorate even worse here, depending on exactly where you are. The tornado threat will increase, and then the storm itself is going to move very quickly in the core of it and move very quickly out, but it's going to pack a significant punch here that we have to be very cognizant of. So that's what we're tracking here at Cloud Weather to try to keep you safe and informed here because it is going to be a significant deal. It looks like you see a lot of the quarter cloud tops here as we look right now toward areas here south of Cuba. You see here all that organization really coming into play, so that's problematic. We'll have to watch to see exactly where maybe an eye forms because that forms a little east or a little west. That could kind of change the track here some. And we'll also have to watch for wobbles too once it gets into toward the Gulf, though it's going to move very quickly at that point. So we'll kind of just have to, it's kind of a tricky situation because we don't generally have a storm ever really move this fast in the Gulf of Mexico at this intensity. So it's going to be kind of something where things, in theory, could kind of change pretty quickly on us here if we see some type of, shift like we saw in Charlie, a different type of motion than the expectation. And then I know also there's just a chance that we could just see the shift a little bit ahead of time here, where we, have a scenario where the ultimate track changes maybe later on that day on Wednesday, but hopefully not. A lot of the models are in pretty good agreement when I say hopefully not, I mean for like the Stark area, Jacksonville, because an adjustment to the east would be very severe. But of course, our area further out toward the west is looking like it's going to be a very significant blow here. As we're in Bradford County, but I know I just feel for you guys in Taylor County and Dixie County, Levy County, over toward Lafayette County, Jefferson County, Madison County. You had a Dahlia so bad, and Swanee County as well. And now this looks to be a very big deal here. Could even be worse than Adalia, Helene, believe it or not. Expected to be slightly stronger. I know Adalia ultimately 115 at landfall with the winds. This is showing right now 120 miles an hour. So again, we're just gonna watch here in terms of this. We just hope we talk about the track adjustments and how it could affect folks in the area. But then you also just have to think about, well, we really hope it doesn't strengthen near as much as the expectation. I mean, it's still possible, but it's not likely, that it won't rapidly intensify. It very more than likely will do that because pretty much all the models are calling for that very serious situation. And this is where the eye of the storm we're at 3 is. Would probably be. That's what it's showing the forecast is where it's expected to be around 8 o'clock there on that Thursday. It's going to move very quickly, but it'll be approaching the coast there, that eye wall getting on shore somewhere around that point in time. So a very serious situation here as we kind of look at things, as we try to keep you guys safe and informed here. I know really there's hurricane gust in that red circle area, then the hurricane sustained winds in the purple area here at that point. But then it's going to move so quickly. I mean, by the time we get here, further out in the timeline, we look, you see it's going to be a depression as we get up toward Atlanta there by 8 o'clock there on that Friday. I know Atlanta's not obviously in our area, but it's going to be a pretty serious situation for those folks. I know we may not have too much time to touch on it, but a lot of flooding expected up there. So, actually could have more rain around Atlanta and some of those areas in North Georgia than areas further over in Northeast Florida, especially. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. I mean, even maybe North Central Florida as well, but especially Northeast Florida, which is closer to Jacksonville behind me here. So that's something that's interesting. But we still have to watch for the shifts, the wobbles, things like that here. With Helene, as we look ahead in toward the timeline, I know things could get kind of dicey here on us as we look, though if it shifts or not for somebody across our area. As we look toward later Thursday, it's going to be a very, very serious hurricane. It looks like you just have to kind of bear, with everybody, as this evolves. And then, the aftermath. Already had so many storms. At Debbie earlier back in August, pretty similar area. Dahlia, Cat 3 there. I want to say low end, but low end Cat 3 is a major hurricane. This is expected to be slightly stronger, bigger, so that means maybe a bigger storm surge here as well, and already more vulnerable areas than they would have been 13 months ago with Adalia. So this is not good news at all, folks. It's very, very serious what we're looking at for, Tallahassee, which, an area that hadn't maybe been hit as hard as they could have. You hear about, I mean, Hermine was pretty bad there, don't get me wrong. Michael was pretty bad in Tallahassee, but the worst of Hermine, was Little East, but even then it was a Cat 1, so they did get the Iowa in Tallahassee, but, Cat 3's Iowa is a lot worse than a Cat 1's Iowa in terms of the wind, and then Michael making landfall Panama City, Mexico Beach area, so, didn't necessarily get into the core of it, but still a lot of strong, strong wind coming on through, causing a lot of power outages, but the core of Cat 3, something that maybe Tallahassee hadn't experienced in a long time. I know in '85, Kate was a Cat 2, I believe, back in November '85. This could be, very serious if it goes more due right into toward Tallahassee here, due north, and that's definitely a distinct possibility here. So, it could be something. I mean, we had those tornadoes back in May there on Tallahassee. Could be something like that, but maybe even a little bit worse and over a wider area for a more extended period of time. I mean, it's going to be a pretty quick moving system, but a tornado doesn't, take very long at all to move through. This would still take a few hours maybe to move through here, and that would still be something very, very consequential where, you could have wide-ranging impacts in Florida State Capitol. So a very serious situation here as we're looking at things. And we're just gonna keep everybody in our thoughts and prayers. We're always on top of things for the 62 counties, and just gonna continue to track it all for you here as things evolve. I know the consensus model's a little west here of the official track, but there's some other models here that global models and the like. They'll go a little bit east, some other high res models as well. So this is kind of splitting the difference here. I'm kind of thinking probably a Taylor County landfall, especially, it's a little bit longer area of a coastline anyway. So, that's the area that both Debbie and Adalia both made landfall within, and that would make the most sense here too. So, I mean, the pattern seems to indicate that. I mean, as we're looking at things, but we'll just have to continue to monitor it. Small adjustments, small wobbles, small differences where that center forms with the eye, and then you see how things are tracking, and then in the models that can make a really big difference in hyperlocal impacts despite a longer, area of wind in terms of spatial coverage, though in terms of duration shorter, but with it moving so quick, that's going to get these stronger winds further into Georgia, maybe, a bit worse than Adalia, even in some spots, in Valdosta and the like. I know maybe more reminiscent of the winds, in Georgia, maybe a little bit different area with the core, but reminiscent of those winds of Michael around Albany and, especially Donaldsonville back in 2018. This could be more about Valdosta. Adel, though, give or take. So, again, we're going to continue to watch. And I say Valdosta, Adel. That's what I'm seeing in some of my high-res models. That could also mean Thomasville. I know you guys are under Hurricane Watch. You have Cairo in here. You have Quitman in here and the like, too. So, could be a good bit worse for you guys as we're looking. A little surprised they didn't upgrade things to a hurricane warning at 11 o'clock for Georgia counties there, but I expect it to come at 5 a.m. for some folks. So, just going to have to continue to monitor the situation. Before I get into our graphics per se, I'm going to go ahead and just check to see if there's any questions or comments from any of the viewers at home don't see anything right now, but just thanks so much for tuning in right now on Twitter/X, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch here, trying to keep you guys safe and informed. I know if you missed something here that I'm going to talk about or have talked about, that YouTube platform at Clouds Weather has that DVR functionality. So make sure you go over there and subscribe. Of course, follow on Twitter, like one of the Facebook pages there at least, and then follow on Twitch at the website here as well. So trying to let you guys know how to find the coverage. They're going to be on a lot more here in the next couple of days, especially with that landfall coverage, to keep you, your friends, your family safe. We'll have digital coverage here and the like. So it's trying, it's about trying to keep everybody safe and informed here as we look at things here at Clouds Weather. Let me go ahead now. We will get into the graphics. I didn't see any questions or comments yet, but again, thanks so much for tuning in and trusting me. I know we were on here earlier on. Have a few updated, graphics and also some different graphics here as well. So go ahead and kind of stick with me here as we're looking at things. This is the 11 o'clock update. The max winds up to 60. I know that went up to earlier on in the evening, but in terms of the full advisory, taking that into consideration with the forecast, you see hurricanes expected pretty quickly here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking the situation. So, and for what it's worth, these, because of where it is at, I didn't notice this when I put the, overlay together, but I see that these times are in Central Time on here. So really 7 p.m. means 8 p.m. It's just because that's where the center technically is off of Mexico right now. And you see a lot of the wind here, mostly just on the east side, very, loaded to the east side here. So that could have, consequences here, maybe a relocation to the center, or just, a lot more folks on the east side feeling the impact here. And they're going to have significant storm surge consequences here all up the west coast of Florida, the Gulf Coast, even worse as we get, further up, per se, toward the Big Bend region. So just something to, keep in mind. This is expected to be the strongest United States landfall hurricane so far this year. And that size and strength could be devastating here to portions of our area and just portions of the state, and even in areas of Georgia outside of our covered area further up as well. Because it's, going to spread some pretty strong winds into Georgia and rain. That could be flooding as we, look at things. Flooding rains up there, could have flooding rains in our area in Apalachicola, give or take, as well. And they've already had a lot of rain recently, with the Francine even. They were getting some storminess on the very eastern fringe with that back, going a couple weeks ago. We see 120-mile-an-hour winds of the major hurricane approaching the Big Bend and Tallahassee, 7 p.m. Central, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern on that Thursday. And you just have to be really cognizant. We have to see how this kind of passes here, too. You have the Yucatan Peninsula here, and then you have Cuba. Depending on how they split the difference, it might keep a week a little longer if it goes over here. But if it kind of stays in between, then that's going to let it, get that organization quicker and, have a even better chance of being a major hurricane, maybe even a Category 4 hurricane. So keep that in mind. You see the hurricane warning there in the word, that red. Tallahassee's under that. We have other areas too. Let me go ahead and go to a hyper local look at this on our other computer source right now. We'll go ahead and pop that up for you guys, the viewers at home. You can see this is in that maroonish color, hurricane warning here, meaning you really need to start wrapping up those preparations to protect life and property. There's been mandatory evacuations in some of these areas. So that's very important to take, heed of here, especially in those storm surge vulnerable areas. But a hurricane warning really means, within 36 hours, probably within 30 hours is, based on just the timing of these type of warning, 28 hours, give or take. It's going to be, too late here to prepare in terms of it, getting, rough. I mean, granted, you might have a little bit longer for the core, but hurricane warning for Tallahassee, for Crawfordville, for, Liberty County there, Franklin County, Apalachicola, Gulf, just outside of the area. You have Monticello and Jefferson County, Madison County, the community of Madison, Perry and Taylor County. You have Dixie County, so Horseshoe Beach, over toward areas like Cross City. Lafayette County means Mayo, and Levy County means Cedar Key and Chiefland as well. So again, a hurricane warning in play here. You got to take this situation seriously, and if the track were to just east, and maybe having to move this over, or a good bit east, and I would expect, honestly, though, just based on looking at things, not even with much of an adjustment. Swanee, Hamilton, Gilchrist, those counties there, and then into South Georgia, even maybe a little bit more likely. Going to have some areas upgraded to hurricane warning up that way too, it would seem. So, gotta take this situation very seriously when there's a hurricane warning in play. And let's go back over to the graphics now, though. You can kind of see here what we're looking at, what we're tracking. You see tropical storm warning, a lot of central Florida and that. That's further east, it's going to be, maybe more of a tornado threat than anything. Or just, having to watch in case the track shifts too. And then you also see Jacksonville, Stark, that area. Tropical storm watch right now. Hurricane watch for Lake City, over toward Newberry, Archer, over further to Live Oak, and that's in the pink color. Yellow is tropical storm watch. Pink is a hurricane watch here on this map, and that's kind of small, but this kind of breaks it down here. A new thing they're doing at the Hurricane Center to make things a little bit easier to see the impact of. It's still better than having to go to other source and then switch the colors around. This has them all together here. I do have, as I said a moment ago, isolated the hurricane warning, where maybe the greatest impact would lie, but still, you can see the red there, hurricane warning, pink hurricane watch, blue tropical storm warning, yellow tropical storm watch, and there's even a mixture of some of those toward Tampa, hurricane watch, tropical storm warning. So, but there's a storm surge warning there, so that's still a serious situation for those folks. As we look here, as we watch, and then as we look here at the Saffir-Simpson hurricane wind scale, right now, Cat 3 landfall, 120-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, devastating damage here. Reported in North Florida and then really even in South Georgia, be about some to extensive damage. So, gotta be really mindful of that as we watch things. And then Helene, we got that name there back at about 11 a.m. on that Tuesday. We were watching the potential tropical cyclone 9 that formed into tropical storm Helene, and this will strengthen into Hurricane Helene now later today, almost undoubtedly. If it doesn't, that would delay things in terms of strengthening some, which would be some good news it would seem. But it would be really surprising if it did not become a hurricane, probably even pretty early on today. And then you see our coastal storm surge threat looking there 10 to 15 feet, folks. This is so serious, and you've got to evacuate here in these areas. I cannot emphasize that enough. This could be, and Idalia is still very bad for, areas of Horseshoe Beach, especially, and, Steenhatchee, Cedar Key, areas in between there. But it's a scenario where, even though it was very bad then, this could actually be worse based on how some of the different things could come together here. Maybe in a bigger storm here, maybe a little bit stronger, strengthening the landfall. We'll have to also watch the tide cycles all up and down the coast to see, where things can maximize it. I mean, even 5 to 8 feet is significant around Tampa Bay. So this is a very big deal. But in our area specifically, I mean, in Franklin County, evacuations there, 5 to 10 feet of storm surge. But then going over Wakulla County and, points south and east, we have 10 to 15 feet. That is extremely dangerous. That's the peak expectation here. But as we're looking, Wakulla, Jefferson, Taylor, Dixie, Levy, and then down to out of our area in Citrus as well. 10 to 15 feet above ground level of peak storm surge expected as we get later into that Thursday. So again, that's coastal Wakulla, coastal Jefferson, coastal Taylor, coastal Dixie, coastal Levy, and Citrus. So again, you gotta really be taking this situation very seriously here. And evacuate. I mean, this could be, a devastating blow once again to folks that are recovering over and over again, it seems like at this point. Medallia especially, though. And here's another look at things. This is something that I retweeted earlier on Twitter/X, and it's from NOAA and weather.gov per se, and it's to help you understand storm surge. So it's a picture of a family, and this kind of puts this into play here of exactly how things are here in real life. So got to keep that in mind. And that you see here as we look at the scale, I mean, we're looking 0 to 3 feet. I mean, that still gets the family in quite a bit of water. 3 to 6 feet. That's getting over their head. So even in those areas, this could be deadly. As we're looking at things, 6 to 9 feet, it's over their head. 9 to 12 feet. You see how high that's getting, and over 12 feet. I mean, you see how high that is on this home. At this point, that's 12 feet, and you go up even more. I mean, 15 feet get you even further up, give or take here. So that's really bad. Really bad news for folks. I know I see some different updates coming on some of the alerts. I'm not sure if they might be trying to add some stuff, or just they might be just redoing some of the text in terms of the wind impacts. I'm not sure, or rain or something like that, because interested in coming in now. I don't think they'd be adding anything, because that wouldn't, they have to be honest. That's what advisory now, since the Hurricane Center's kind of in charge of that. But I'd have to come at the advisory time, though, I think. But seeing all those come across in our system, the continuance of a hurricane warning and the lines for different areas of our viewing circle. So again, but storm surge, flooding. This gives you that visual here. I know, a big deal with this. These warnings interesting to see, because remind me a little bit with the broad scope of all the tropical storm alerts. Even remind me a little bit of Irma's size, how it covered so much of the state. Maybe not quite to that degree. I think it was all but like 3 counties under alert at one point. State of emergency for many places, but we're not quite to that point yet per se. But it's something where we do have alerts in a lot of places here for folks to take heed of. I mean, just continuing to track the situation. We're watching again a hurricane warning here in the local area. I just wanted to go back real quick to this graphic. I mean, on our other source, and I mean, it's not that much off of, just 3 counties. I mean, it's really just west of Panama City, and then southeast Florida doesn't have the alerts right now. I mean, I see here on the information, even a little bit southeast Alabama under this. That's what kind of caused me to double check some stuff here. So that just kind of say the scope of things with our threat, with the situation. Again, the hurricane warning on this screen here behind me, isolating that for you guys to kind of understand that danger. Important graphic I'm about to show you now here. This is something I put together. It goes over those peak wind gusts that we're expecting and the power outage expectations. So this is a pretty serious graphic here. I mean, the storm surge graphic is very serious. This is pretty serious. And this is something, just looking at everything on my own here, trying to kind of get things figured on out for you guys, the viewers at home. You can see, so the purple area, the peak wind gust, the more coastal areas, maybe coastal Taylor, that general vicinity, depending on where this hits, we could have gusts to 130 miles an hour. And that means a situation we have near 100% power outages, and a lot of folks in the dark for over a week. So that is very significant, very serious. And then the red areas here, Tallahassee, by Austin, and areas kind of around Live Oak, give or take, and in between here as well, seeing about 95 miles an hour for the peak wind gust potential in that vicinity. And this could, vary some. I'm going to up some of these here for some of these spots a little based on the ultimate, track coming into focus, and maybe go down just a little bit. But we're talking about in those areas, widespread outages, for days here. So that's very serious, especially if Tallahassee gets this, right through town with up those numbers. Some of those trees, we already had a lot come down in the tornadoes back in May, but this could, be even worse than that. I mean, that was bad enough. It was deadly, and, really just a crazy situation for Tallahassee in May, and this could be worse. You do at least have more time to prepare for this. Something like that, when that really kind of, happened with about 10 minutes, beforehand, really seeing that things were going to take a turn for the worse. And with this, at least we know now, things, across parts of the area are going to take a turn for the worst here as we look ahead. So you got to take this situation seriously. You got to charge those devices up here if you're not evacuating, because, widespread outages and for days. Now, in the orange, that's like Gainesville, Stark area. We're talking about scattered to widespread, depending on the track. So 75 miles an hour with that peak gust around Gainesville, 75 around Stark, give or take, as well. And then you see 60 miles an hour, which is still considered damaging enough to cause isolated to scattered power outages, Brunswick, Jacksonville, and Palm Coast. So this could shift around some. It's subject to change, but trying to give you guys an idea of what could happen with those Helene winds, kind of crunching the numbers here in toward the weather center for you, your friends, your family. And then as you look the next 3 days, really mainly about Thursday and the early Friday with, the bulk of this, some on Wednesday, but bulk of this on Thursday and Friday with the rainfall here. As we're looking at things, you see that Apalachicola area stand out. We're seeing this in a model and looking at some stuff earlier on, and the Weather Prediction Center saying that area could get 10 plus inches on average. And then just around that here, 7 to 10 inches. I know some of that's just the overall pattern because the core of the storm is moving pretty quick. But then Tallahassee, we're talking about 5 to 7 inches. Same toward like Bainbridge and Thomasville. And you get points east, I mean, gonna be a little bit more or a lot more broken up at points. I mean, areas like Nassau, Baker counties here, closer to about 3 inches. And then around Stark, maybe on average around 2.5 inches. So, that's substantially less, but it doesn't mean, believe it or not, it seems kind of crazy. It doesn't mean necessarily that you won't have the wind. The way this could be going is we get kind of the edge of the core, and you don't get a whole bunch of rain, but you still get a good number of power outages around a windstorm, right on the edge of some of this here. With it moving so quick, you get the wind, but you don't get, this completely flooding rains. Like, I mean, you also see though, to go to North Georgia, I got to point this out, Atlanta, that, that type of area there, urban, and, more concrete. I mean, more flood concern up there. They're not used to that much rain, 7 inches on average there. And even toward western North Carolina, maybe around Asheville, it looks like maybe upward about 10 inches on average. That could be really, devastating. And some of the areas would get flash flood emergencies in some of these scenarios with that much rain. So that could be a big deal here as well. Something that, may get overlooked because we're so focused on our area and Florida and, and the like. But I know you also can go to clutter.com/radar for an interactive look at things when I'm not on. You also can kind of look at some different models through that and that platform there. Use caution looking at that guidance. But as we go ahead and look here, trying to give you some preparedness considerations now. Secure property and decide whether evacuation is necessary. You run from the water in general and you hide from the wind in general, but some areas, closer to that core of the wind may need to hide, from this in maybe a place away from where they're at, that means evacuate potentially, especially those in mobile homes, and towards some of those zones there are mandatory evacuations for some different counties and zones further out there toward the Big Bend region. So you got to take those into consideration, take heed of those. Like threatening storm surge, though, you gotta run from the water. We lost so many people in storms like Hurricane Ian because they didn't evacuate. Granted, things shifted very quickly in terms of the center line of the track. Now that's why you got to watch the whole cone now. And you saw how, that's why we got to be, still vigilant here that things could shift some in terms of the greatest threats here as are looking ahead in toward the time limit. That was a pretty dramatic shift there, but there was still concern as we were looking to Fort Myers, but it escalated rapidly, and folks were to some degree, in some cases, caught off guard. So we got to be careful. I know we're kind of focusing maybe on Perry, Tallahassee, but things can always shift. Of course, we got to watch for Culligan County too. We don't talk about them maybe enough, but that goes right in. Some of those areas could really get it bad. They haven't maybe got it as bad, because Adalia went a little east, but as we look here, basic disaster supplies kit includes water, non-perishable food, battery-powered hand crank radio, a NOAA weather radio, flashlight, first aid kit, and it's also important. If the internet's out but restaurants are open, you need to have gas, cash. You need to have cash. You need to have gas for those too. But the point being first is cash. You need to have that on hand. So if the credit card machines are down, you can pay for food and the like. And then gas, you need to have that. Once maybe trees get cleared up, but you're still without power, just to be able to get to those places. So that's why it's so important to have that stuff ahead of time, because there'll probably be, a lot of these storms afterward, there's big lines, folks, trying to get gas, and sometimes folks are getting it for generators too. And that means generator safety is very critical here. As carbon monoxide poisoning can be deadly. Do not use a portable generator like that in your home, because that can, and in a lot of cases, is deadly. You're not supposed to use one of those gas generators in your home, or even that close to your home. You have to be very, very careful about where to put that there. I mean, there's certain, things you got to take into consideration with that, because, you don't even want to have it, right there where it can just get right into your, air conditioner, ventilation system and come right back at you. So you got to be very careful about that. Charge up those devices as many power outages across the area are certain. Be ready to move to an interior room in a tornadic situation. And after a storm moves through, staying away from power lines, and also generator safety. Again, reiterating that critical. Also, if you have intersections where you don't have certain systems in play, you got to treat those as four-way stops. If they don't have like a backup, a generator, something like that, to keep them on. If they're out, the power light, the power's out. I mean, in those cases, in the traffic lights are out. You got to treat those intersections as four-way stops. Very critical to keep in mind, of course, as we've been very concerned about this threat. Turning that logo red last Thursday here, because it's all about protecting you, your friends, and your family here at Clouds Weather, as we go ahead and see that Helene tornado threat. That's going to maximize on Thursday. And I was looking at some of the guidance here. I wanted to emphasize this in case, Jacksonville, Gainesville, Stark, I mean, those numbers were, still having to be pretty aggressive with the wind gust potential because of the bigger wind field that's expected. Granted, we won't know exactly how that evolves until the storm gets, better organized even. But the tornado threat, those areas that don't have the concern here from the strongest winds, especially the areas, not under a hurricane watch or a hurricane warning, a tornado could still do tremendous damage, especially if we kind of have a situation where it's moving so quickly in the low pressure. This is a fast movement, and you have some maybe you get some clearing in between some of the initial bands there in the afternoon. We could have a bunch of tornado warnings even in the morning on Thursday. I mean, even later Wednesday, the possibility too. But the parameters really pick up as we get into toward Thursday. You see that down even around Fort Myers, Sarasota, Tampa, Orlando. That's the rest there. They're gonna have to watch, and our area is gonna have to watch it as well. We'll probably have a tornado watch for those areas in and into that yellow zone, and even some of the green zone, dark green zone in that too. So, but the yellow zone, we're gonna be really careful with this. We could get it's not out of the question based on some of the stuff I was looking at. We could get a nice little strong EF2 type of tornado on that Thursday in this setup. It's very, tricky in these tropical situations, and because it's moving quicker, there won't be maybe as many windows for the right conditions to come together with the shear and the instability. But if they do, there could be a period of some significant hazards in terms of multiple rotating storms at one time producing tornadoes. So I got to keep that in mind here with this as we go ahead and see the tornado safety tips. And then also, as I said this to you, tornado warning tips, which I'll talk about in a moment. Those are important if you get under extreme wind warning as well. If you aren't in an evacuation, area there per se, and you didn't leave, and you're trying to kind of take refuge here, and you have those worst of the winds coming on in, you'll have to take the tornado warning safety tips into account. Like, that extreme wind warning is a tornado warning. It's pretty much, the type of winds you'd be seeing if you get one of those, which, we had not really seen around our area until, since I've been doing cloud weather, except during Idalia last year. And there's if we get a 120-mile-an-hour hurricane hitting, we'll have many of those here as we look more than likely, especially with the fast movement of this, probably, like 5 of them here, just as the timeline progresses, give or take. So, it's hard to give an exact count on that because, they could do a bigger one if the timeline, says that it's moving so quick. But we'll see how they kind of do that. But, if we get into that range around 115, 120, that's tornado-like winds over a large area. So, you see there the tornado watch tips, conditions favorable for tornadic activity is what that means. And you want to stay tuned for the latest and charge your devices. Have multiple ways to receive alerts. A tornado warning means a tornado has been detected using that radar technology or spot. And then that means in these situations, and extreme wind warnings. We really want to try to not be in a mobile home. At that point, of course, in a hurricane, you really, if you're in a hurricane warning, you really do not want to be riding that out in a mobile home if you can avoid that. Because those winds, even though again you run from the water and hide from the wind, you probably don't want to hide from hurricane winds in a mobile home. Same goes for a tornado, which that potential definitely could and will exist outside the hurricane warning area. But get inside a sturdy building, put as many walls between you and the outside as possible, and protect yourself from flying debris. Put on a bicycle helmet, football helmet, baseball helmet, and then also have those shoes on. So, different things to keep in mind. Bicycle helmet, a football helmet, or a baseball helmet. Choose one of those as you want to keep yourself safe here in these scenarios. I know I was thinking about these extreme wind warnings again too, which are very rare, but probably going to have some of those on Thursday and Thursday evening as it's getting dark across our area, which makes things even worse. I know we had some of those, areas here in our western zone during Michael, but we started cloud weather officially about a year later after that. We haven't, except for Dahlia last year, hadn't had those. We had a slew of those last year during that storm, which means tornado-like winds over a large area. You gotta, with the hurricane, I will take your tornado safety tips, so we could have those, in those areas where we're still in the winds 130 or even 95 miles an hour. That whole vicinity there's at risk for those, and we have to watch for ships to see if anybody else is. But that area in general. Some of those areas won't probably get one because we'll see an adjustment. We have to raise a couple of 95 mile an hour numbers that I had on the graphic and maybe lower one a little bit. I know. Let me pull that graphic back in real quick again. There's your hurricane warning. Let me move this down just a little bit here if I can. Let me switch to other source here. Let me try. Which source do we want to go to? Let's go to this source here real quick. Let me go ahead and go to this one here. It says your hurricane warning. And I wanted to kind of back our graphics up here so folks are just tuning in because I spent quite a bit of time on this graphic with the wind potential because there's not something really directly, there's some stuff similar but not directly with wind gust potential like this. I had to crunch the numbers here and come up with some different, forecasts for different communities. And the rainfall forecast we showed you the Weather Prediction Center storm surge numbers come from the Hurricane Center, but it's something I looked at the model and kind of came up with here because I know there's some different sometimes in some of those advisory, statements. There's some different numbers, but this is a better way to do it. Just looking at the models and my assessment of things, and we're expecting the worst later Thursday and the very early Friday, especially South Georgia. Be very early Friday, the wee hours. 12, 1 even, maybe not exactly the wee hours, but then 2 o'clock maybe in our northern zones on that very early Friday. But as we look at things here, again, those, 95 numbers, and I can't put them everywhere on here, but some of those will have to go up probably some. Maybe one of those go down, just kind of, it varies here. We'll just have to watch to see what the models show and what the forecast show. Because, more than likely, Tallahassee and Valdosta and the Lavo vicinity, Swanee River Valley, they won't all have peak gusts to 95. Some of that they'll probably have to raise over 100. And then that means you probably have near 100% type outages in over a week, probably in a lot of cases. Granted, I know last year, more recently, it's been a little bit quicker to power outage restoration process, it seems, over the state of Florida. But it depends on what, population densities get hit too. But as you look here, some of these probably have gone over 100 miles an hour with the gust. It's depending if this goes a little west, Tallahassee have to raise that, lower Valdosta a little, and then maybe lower the Swanee River Valley. But, just more toward Taylor County, then we probably raise that 95 around the Swanee River Valley, and the same with Valdosta. So, and once we get about 100, give or take, is when I would say near 100% in for over a week. It's not an exact science with that, but I know as you get higher up, potential increases pretty substantially. And those 60s here, those 360 numbers, that's the threshold pretty much for a severe thunderstorm warning, 58 miles an hour. And once you get to about 60, 58, miles an hour, 50 knots, 60 miles an hour, then that's when you start having the power outage potential really come into play, and that's why they issue severe thunderstorm warnings at that threshold the weather service offices do. So, because there's science behind that to say that's when you start having the outages and the damage that really starts taking off. I mean, when you get to that 60 threshold, which we could have, a handful of those gusts in those areas outside of a tornado situation, Brunswick, Jacksonville, Palm Coast. So, of course, tornado situation, you can have much stronger winds. So you still got to be really careful in those areas. We saw an Irma around, I believe, it's St. John's County. We had a pretty significant tornado with winds over 100 miles an hour there. And we still had pretty strong winds across. It was worse than this, but point is, you could have a tornado with over 100-mile-an-hour winds anywhere, on the eastern side of this, especially. So, got to be really cognizant of that. Anywhere east of the center in our area, north of the center, you can really see that. On the west side, there's a lower chance, but it's not impossible either. But especially like the east side and north side, that's where you have that higher end potential. So, again, just continuing to watch that for you as we continue to give you the latest. Again, I keep showing this, but this is where right now the greatest danger lies, according to the Weather Service offices in our area, the hurricane warning, and you obviously have to think about the storm surge warning, the coast. With this, that coastal inundation up to 15 feet in coastal Wakulla, Jefferson, Taylor, Dixie, and Levy. So it's very serious here, folks, obviously. But then also, I expect Valdosta, I expect Live Oak, their hurricane watches. Probably, I would think, we get upgraded to hurricane warnings. And areas, too, especially if it kind of goes more toward Tallahassee, you'd have to worry about Thomasville even more so. It could be very serious for you guys in Thomasville. Don't want to leave you guys out. Same with Cairo there and Bainbridge and the like. Could be very serious if this goes right from Tallahassee up into South Georgia. I know in Hermine, folks took refuge there in the Thomasville area because of that track. But Tallahassee was out power for a while, not so much in Thomasville. This is a bigger storm by long, ways here compared to Hermine back in 2016. Michael may not get, right now the expectation is not Cat 5. Could get to a Category 4 though. Granted, Michael was in the period then and they upgraded later. But point being is this is, a storm that's gonna be, closer in distance, more than likely to Tallahassee than Michael was. Though, depending on where this tracks on the west side, it could be something here where, if it goes right through town, or just east of town, in the Iowa, you have the worst hurricane you've seen in many decades. But if it goes a little further east, then, well, as we kind of look at my mapping here, goes a little further this way, not as far maybe as I'm pointing, but you kind of get the idea, then your impacts decrease because the eastern side is going to be more powerful. But just east, like Hermine was, you're going to be having problems because being the eye wall, and this eye wall is probably bigger than Hermine's. That's how it was. It was small back in 2016, Hermine's eye wall. But again, just continuing to track this here. I mean, it's a big deal. Tallahassee's not been a good year. In Tallahassee with the tornadoes back in May, they're coming on through. And then we had the flash flood emergency in April there. The FSU campus cars flooded out and the like. And we already had Debbie there, the Friends impacts from Debbie. And, going back to last year, the Friends impacts from Medallia. And then even though this is a little bit different, but the FSU football team missing the college football playoff, having that snub there by the college football playoff committee. It's just been, last a year or so has not really gone well this year. Things aren't going well with the football team either, but, that's the least of our concerns right now because this is about folks and their lives here that could be on the line with a hurricane impact from Helene. So this is very serious stuff. By the way, I know the FAMU football game got postponed to late November. FSU's on the road at SMU this week. So just kind of passing that on. Florida's off this week. Jacksonville, they're at Houston. That's the Jaguars will be headed to Houston to play on Sunday. And then as we're looking at things in our high school football, some changes. We'll get into that. Bradford, the Scarlet and Gray playing, believe it or not, their homecoming game later tonight at 5 o'clock. That's the plan there. And, the games being moved to Wednesday as well across the region. Not all of them, but some of them in play. So again, we just got to be really cognizant. We'll be watching things for our 62 counties here. We're in Bradford County. We're gonna keep watching. I might even have a map with the counties on here as we look ahead, just so you, not tonight, not on this current update. I mean, I say tonight, it's already Wednesday now, but later on, Wednesday night or Wednesday during the day or into Thursday, depending on how things go. I may have a graph here where we kind of really break down county by county with the different colors on how the impact could be the greatest. Didn't have enough confidence in everything yet to show something like that, but I've had that kind of ready in case, technology to have that together there in case we needed something like that. It's a pretty serious type of graphic, so hopefully things won't develop and in terms of it, rapidly intensifying, but hope's not a plan, and it probably will. But it's a pretty dire type of graphic in terms of how to kind of sell what areas would have the more likelihood of being even uninhabitable and the like here, depending on how things set on up. But okay, so as we go ahead and look here at some more tropical climatology, you can kind of see here now, looking at the end of September, we've had storms like Ian this time of year, and you can see in October chances go down some for storms in the Atlantic Basin and the number of storms per day per 100 years, but you still see a situation here where definitely a possibility probably have Isaac developing further out in the Atlantic later on. As of now, didn't seem to be too threatening for the U.S., but we'll look ahead later on in the time. I haven't had much time to focus on that one. And then here's something a little bit funner, but we still got to be a little bit careful with the weather here too. This is, my alma mater here for our viewers on Stark, that homecoming forecast. In terms of the weather, I know in terms of the game, Bradford should get an easy win in this, but Keystone Heights Indians 2-2 at Bradford Tornadoes 4-0. Wednesday at 5 p.m. Stark, mid 80s, 50% chance of rain. Showers possible and a bit breezy, gusts there maybe around 20 miles an hour, give or take, so not too concerning, just enough to maybe affect the kicking game, something like that. But so that's something that's, not overwhelming win. For what it's worth, I know we use this graphic. I don't really remember too many games during the day. Probably pretty cloudy at this point, maybe breaks here or there, but this is, the Stark guy, Keystone against Bradford here, going back a few years, but you can see here, that's going back up several years at this point, but you can kind of see there, it won't be dark there at that time at 5 o'clock, but we'll make sure there's no lightning around. Hopefully there won't be. It's not out of the question completely, because you're out ahead, so we'll have to watch, but hopefully not, as we're looking at this. So that's your high school football forecast, putting that on in here. Since that got moved from Friday to Wednesday, homecoming parade for our Stark area viewers. As you're looking at things, I know you're kind of interested in that. I know as we look for Wednesday, this game was going to be a little bit later Wednesday, but we moved it up to 5. But then on Saturday now is when the homecoming parade is scheduled to be. Hopefully everything's good in terms of not having enough damage, in terms of having to move things around further. But 9 a.m. on Saturday, weather should be clearing on out by then. And we'll have to watch for areas that don't have power. Be warming up here a good bit too. I mean, it's going to be pretty warm in this game here. Some clouds, but mid 80s, a little bit warmer than they're used to. High school football could affect the cramps of some of the players and the like. But as you look here, it's going to be, as we're looking there, to award Saturday homecoming parade and tornado whirl in the afternoon. Could be kind of getting warmer then, depending on how things set up, and then it's 2 o'clock and then dance that night. But I know this game here might be a situation where it gets done pretty quick, because looking sunset 7:20 tonight, and looking at things, with this, honestly, might have, just with Bradford being so good here on the high school football field this year of Eden Mandarin, it might be a game that gets to a running clock here even. So we'll kind of see how that goes there, because Bradford has such a big lead. But as we go ahead and we continue to, get back to the storm itself now, we're going to go ahead and jump back on Oregon, a hurricane warning in play from Helene, as we're checking on things here. Just if there's any questions or comments from any of the viewers as the situation does evolve. So looks like we have a few comments here. So let's see here. Cold core low, Mississippi. I know we have have a weird weather pattern overall. It's going to be tricky because we have. I'll kind of say here a little bit of this. I mean, as we kind of look ahead, we're going to have some interaction here, maybe a Fujiwara effect as we look later on. That I mean, could have a good bit of rain as we look up toward like even Missouri and the like. We've had just the overall pattern here. Tornado warnings further up. But, it's going to be something where we, could see this kind of have a weird looking track here a bit. I know it's weird. I come out trying to sell the wind's picking up someone Saturday around Nashville on this, which is interesting, but kind of having some different movements with it. As we look further up, that could definitely have some impacts on where this goes further in with the rain threats. So that's unique. A Fujiwara effect where you could have things that's not going to maybe be an issue as we're at the Gulf Coast really, but as we look further up, that can have an effect here on things as we get closer, in there in toward the geography. But as we kind of go ahead here and look, let me go ahead and see viewer on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching there. I appreciate the kind words. And then another viewer, they're talking about, can you talk about the Atlanta area? Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about Atlanta a little bit. Another part of our area here where we're really focused on, tornado warning coverage or 62 counties in terms of, obviously the hurricane landfall. So we have coverage of any hurricane landfall, of course, but really, we have a hurricane coming toward our 62 counties really focused. But I'm going to show you guys something about Atlanta because this could be very serious for folks around Atlanta. It could be a very big national story even up there where, it could have a number of folks get hurt or even lose their lives as we look there up in the timeline. Because here's the rainfall forecast the next 3 days. You can see kind of that mustard yellow color. You're going to have 7 to 10 inches. And with this moving so quickly, I know there's been some talk, and it depends on how strong this gets, but Hugo in 89 got the hurricane type of winds, I believe it was, to even Charlotte there. I wasn't around them, but just kind of thinking, reading some different type of stories about that. So that was very far in. So, the way this goes, the stronger it is at the coast, the stronger it's going to be inland here. I know with Michael, Macon got pretty nasty, but then it kind of went over more toward Augusta. We'll see what this does, but this goes more into Atlanta. And we had some of that with Irma, I believe, to some degree, but this goes more into Atlanta there. Then it could cause a lot of trees to fall, a lot of flash flooding, and we could have, really bad stuff with trees falling, homes and cars, and then because of the, wind and the saturated ground, and with the stronger type of wind than you generally get up there. I'll kind of go into the model guidance here real quick and let's say the GFS. So we'll kind of do this. I'll start it so we kind of watch the progress, and this is loaded in here at this point, and you'll see some warnings further off. There's like thunderstorm warning in Oklahoma, some flash flood warnings in North Carolina right now, and they'll be getting more rain some of those areas from this, but which isn't good. Let's go ahead and say you here. So we're going to kind of watch this and see the progression. I'll keep Atlanta in the frame, and we'll try to kind of progress this here. So you can see we're just going to watch the development of this together a little. So first, I mean, it's not, really, totally organized, but it's going to organize quickly. You see, as we get here, it's 2 o'clock and 5 and 8. You see that eye, it would seem, and then we get in there. You can see an eye wall there. This is getting in toward 11 o'clock on that Thursday. I know you see kind of a dry slot across North Florida. If we get, north central Florida, I should say, but effective moisture in Apalachicola, which would cause flooding ahead of the core. But the dry slot here, that could actually help increase some type of tornado threat if we get stuff developing in there. But you see that eye here and the eye wall, especially. and then we get this here closer to the coast, and this is around 5 o'clock. I'll get back to Atlanta here in a moment, but so this is 2 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock. We'll move this up a little, and that eye wall is going to have those winds, that's gust over 100 miles an hour potentially, depending on exactly where this goes. But then you see how very quickly that moved. That's 8 o'clock, and then let's put the hurricane center's forecast. That's pretty similar, slightly east though. But that's still, this is being as big as it is. It could still put Tallahassee in the eye wall, even if it makes landfall in Taylor County, which wasn't, exactly the case. It depends on how this sets up, how the eye wall pattern sets up. But we'll see how that kind of evolves, because if this can get big enough, then that eye wall, even if the landfall is further up in Taylor County, it could get into Leon, and that's where you have the worst of the winds. So even if it made landfall not too far away from where Dahlia did, and you could still have problems here that are quite a bit worse. It just kind of depends on how this sets on up. But this is a little east, but we shall see with that. That's 8 p.m. though, and by 11, I mean, that moves as quick as you ever see, which means that I-75 corridor, we could have trees down everywhere, and here around Tipton and Adel, but Austin, this scenario, I mean, that is not good. I know we have viewers in Adel, and that's a concern. I mean, we may get hurricane warnings. I talk about Valdosta probably needing to be upgraded here at some point, maybe even up to Adel in Cook County here. So you can kind of see that there. That is so quick. That's incredibly quick. That's like a squall line, pretty much. It is associated with the front here in the pattern. That's not normal at all to see a movement of a hurricane this strong, that quick. Normally they'll kind of, move along 5-10 miles an hour. I mean, these are 3-hour intervals, but still, I mean, you go from it being off the coast here with the eye, and I mean, let me see here. That's, right off the coast at 8 o'clock, and then let me go ahead and just plot where that eye could be at 11 o'clock here. And again, I'll get to Atlanta in a minute. I just wanted to walk folks through this since we're in this source. So, I mean, 11 o'clock, I mean, the eye is center. I mean, maybe it's still a defined eye where you could, gotta be real careful, but you might be able to see stars in the eye of a hurricane, even up toward Adel possibly, depending on how well formed this is. I mean, that is 90 miles in 3 hours. That means the storm's moving about 30 miles an hour, which is just, that's though you may be seeing an extratropical system further up off, the coast there, or even, getting toward Canada, something like that. That is not good in terms of that inland wind threat. If this gets to a Cat 3 or above, especially, then you could have the worst, damage from a hurricane you really ever seen around Valdosta or Adel. So still could be very bad at the coast. I mean, even worse technically, it's just, the odds of something happening in the water coast, even though some of the areas like Tallahassee really haven't seen it, they're a lot higher. The odds of something, holding together that and being this quick and getting into Georgia, at least it's over quicker, but that's not, that high of a something that you would really expect. So this could really just cause trees to fall everywhere. I mean, even Albany, they might get under a hurricane warning depending on how things set up here. So this is concerning. That's 11 p.m. and that means it's already gone to Valdosta. I mean, this is just going to be flying here. That's really concerning, and that means let's go ahead and kind of get into Georgia. You see some rain already, maybe causing some flash flooding further up toward Atlanta as we look, but it's flooding the ground, saturating it for the wind to come in and uproot trees here. And then you see by 2 a.m. that eye wall may, according to this, we'll see, may still be intact here as we look. I mean, it may still be intact to some degree. Maybe those gusts not sustained, probably at this point. Probably labeled tropical storm by the time it gets around Macon. But the gusts could be hurricane force. Augusta, the I-16 corridor, and that would cause, tremendous tree problems. So again, that's around 2 a.m. That eye's already in Macon area. That is just, what a quick speed. I mean, so we take that from 3 hours down here. I mean, looking at that, that's about 95 miles, give or take. So 30 miles an hour still at forward speed, and storm strengthening. This could be a, wind event we've seen or have not seen in Georgia. I mean, we had Donaldsonville hit so hard from Michael, but that storm wasn't moving at 30 miles an hour, and Albany hit pretty hard. It was a Cat 5 at the coast and moving slower than that, but still fairly quick. But this is moving much quicker here in the evening. It could remind, some folks maybe, depending on where you're at, even in Georgia, maybe closer to Atlanta, you might hear trees, here or there, depending on if it's a little bit stronger storm, even maybe even an ice storm, hearing those trees kind of, crack and the likes. This could be the expectation there at 2 a.m. Those trees are breaking the light, but that's 2 a.m. on the 27th, at 5 a.m. Clemson area even, and then you just kind of have a tail end, which, you could have a downpour with this or a quick severe storm, but it doesn't really look like it in this. It's just, pretty clear pretty quickly. That's, as we look, and I mean, by the evening, you can't even hardly see it, how everything's organized, but so that's the current radar now, but let's go back to infrared satellites. Oh my goodness, as we start to wrap this up, that is really organized. I mean, we've been on here about an hour. That is organized a lot here in the last hour. That is not good, folks. This is not good, as you can tell. I mean, I'm surprised that within the hour it's gotten that much more even seemingly organized. I'm gonna run a loop of this here before we start to wrap things up. We may wait for the 2 o'clock update since we've stayed on so long at this point to see if, and they may hold it so as they get things going here, as they kind of get things going, they may not want to get that out until closer to 2 so they can get the latest data in there and possibly get close to. Let me see if we have, I don't know if our recon is showing up on here, but if there's anything out there. Oh, they are starting to get in it now. Okay, I see one of them just coming up in here. They may get, close to upgrading this to a hurricane even pretty quickly. So let's go ahead here and switch back to another mode. Okay, so you see that blue area here? That's recon just trying to get on in here. But you can kind of see how it's really starting to wrap up there. I mean, you get some of this sometimes at night, but this is really right near the center. It's starting. I mean, this is not that long of a loop, really. Let me look here. I mean, it goes back a few hours, but it's starting to get that look. I know, as you kind of look at things, in some ways, as you look at it, maybe you don't see it, but you can kind of just see the wrapping nature of this, the organization, even though there's still purples earlier on. It's just that look of this here starting to really come into play, and that's problematic. So, okay, I don't think we're gonna wait around for the 2 o'clock update then, because that could take a little bit if they're just getting in there with recon. But this is gonna be a nasty storm here, folks. And it could become a hurricane pretty quick. I know climate.com have the different advisory updates there, and in the tropics tab, a couple different maps with the advisory and the alerts. One of them kind of focuses more on the coastal alerts on that graphic. The other shows the inland alerts as well. And we're going to be back here as conditions warn as we track Helene, doing digital updates and coverage, streams, and just all sorts of different things as necessary to keep you, your friends, and your family informed. So a dangerous situation here as we're tracking this, as Helene probably gets pretty close to becoming a hurricane officially. So not a good situation here. Not a good situation as we're tracking. And just seeing some comments here, yeah, we're going to have to be kind of seeing how things organize this. Tallahassee, big problems with all those trees and even stronger winds, it would seem, depending on the exact track. But even Atlanta, things staying organized. I know the official forecast only technically has this weakening down from tropical storm to a depression there. We already have the eye wide ahead, and there's gusts. It would seem, that can be kind of underestimated sometimes, especially with this type of forward speed. I think it could definitely get gusts to hurricane force. 70, 75 miles an hour in toward the Atlanta metro area, and that would cause a lot of problems. So we'll see. There's not official warnings, watches that far for the wind yet, but they can issue them far in like that, and I would suspect we would get some as we look ahead into toward the timeline again. My focus is more here toward our covered area, but it would seem that it would make sense for those alerts to come as we get further on up there. So thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. I appreciate everybody watching here tonight. Of course, you can watch different, views of the coverage, whether it's on Facebook, Casey Cloud WX, Cloud Weather, Twitter /exit Cloud Casey, on YouTube at Cloud Weather. You can go back in the stream while I'm on. And I'll be off in a second, but if while I'm on, you can go use that DVR functionality and kind of miss or see something you might have missed. And then you have Twitch there, Cloud Weather, and cloud.com has a lot of different resources as well, including the links to those sources. So that'll do it for now. Thanks so much for tuning in, trusting me, tracking what is still, for now, termed as Tropical Storm Helene, but probably become a hurricane here in pretty short order. So definitely a nasty situation here. Hope you have a great night, and we'll be on as needed. Different, resources I'll be using, maybe just some satellite streams even, just depending on how things kind of progress, and then we'll have updates, here as we track Helene. It's potentially a really, really dangerous situation, that we're really expecting for portions of our area. We're going to be on top of it here. I'll be on top of it here at Cloud Weather to keep you guys safe and informed. For now, have a great night, and just make sure you're staying safe as you're getting those preparations, rush to completion per se as things deteriorate as we get, especially toward that Thursday and later on in that Thursday with the core of Helene.